Welcome to Subramani. I'm not a big believer in macro. In fact, I'm more on the Peter Lynch side that if you spend 10 minutes on macro, you've wasted 7 minutes. However, when there is a budget announcement, then you have to look at what the finance ministry says about the budget and the deficit and all that, so that you know what the intermediate and the long term trend is. For example, it was very tempting for the government, especially in a coalition, to spend a lot of money and use the RBI dividend of 1,30,000 crores for giving out some doles or things like that. But instead, the government decided to reduce the fiscal deficit. When the budget, interim budget was announced, they said fiscal deficit would be 5.1. Most of us would have expected them to stick to that figure, but they have come to 4.9, which is a very good thing. Also, India being included in the JP Morgan index means that a lot of money will keep coming in. It may not be great, but 10,000-15,000 crores a month, every month for the next at least one year plus. It's not a small sum. So the government has decided to keep its long dated borrowings and pay off the short term borrowing. So they know that in the longer run, at least in the next 1 year, interest rates will only soften because of the incoming money from all these people, because of the JP Morgan rank inclusion in the list. So that is one very good thing for the budget. So keeping the budget deficit low. Also, I think they're very clearly going towards something like 4% in 2025-26, and thereafter again remaining soft, which is a very good thing for the bond market. It shows a lot of stability, and perhaps it could leave a lot of money on the table for the borrowing by the private sector. Private sector capex has not really caught up much, so to that extent maybe the private sector is not looking for too much money, but I'm sure one day when it catches up, or even for its own working capital needs, it's going to need money. It will leave some money with the bank. I also think that for institutions like for organizations like rating agencies, CRISIL, CARE, etc., there's going to be a lot more business, because as people come to borrow, they will need rating. So these businesses look good, other than of course banks, which have not participated much in the rally. Having said that, will the interest rates go up? Extremely unlikely, which makes it good to be a bond investor. I have invested my money in Nivesh Laksh of Nippon. No, this is not a sponsored video. That is where I have invested. So I have done some lump sum and some SIP that I used to do. Very funnily, I continued my wife's SIP in that immaterial of the fact that Nirmala Sitharaman had made that taxable as current income. So now I know that I am going to pay tax on that only when I withdraw, and at 12.5% without indexation. Earlier I thought it would be 20% with indexation, but it looks like it will be 12.5% without indexation. I mean, when I come to capital gains, I'll tell you that indexation, removal of indexation is a crime, especially in a country where there is inflation. So if there is inflation which is going to hurt you, you're at least being partially compensated for that. And for an asset which you bought 20 years back, if there is no gain in that technically because of indexation, you will still end up paying tax. But that's a part. Next thing is the capex. I wish the capex were a little more, but I think they have slightly slowed down on the capex, hoping that the private sector capex will catch up. One more thing is the government's borrowing at the gross level and at the net level is not going to be very different, and that means that the bond yield should be stable. There will be enough indication that market, the interest rate will be visible to us more clearly. Expect better returns in the sense that in bond funds you will still get some appreciation, and interest rates are only headed south. Which is good for the private sector in case they want to borrow more. Capex as a percentage is capex is about 11 11 trillion is 11 trillion, and it is 3.4% of the GDP, which is slower on the uptake, but over the last few years it has been little higher. GOI's commitment to keep capex anchored at a higher is visible, though the pace may be slowing, but that does not really bother me much. I like the fact that they are disciplined, and the fact that they did not use the RBI dividend to give some freebies. They have improved the fiscal discipline, which I think is fantastic, especially in a country where the coalition is supposed to be weak. I don't see any signs of a weak coalition. It's a strong government with 240 seats. Remember, Manmohan Singh and all ran the government with 140 seats or 210 seats, right? So 240 plus two octogenarians who are not really ambitious 30-year-olds trying to become prime ministers augurs well for the government. I don't know whether whether the government could have done something to improve the consumption cycle, but I am reasonably confident that things will happen. The demand for airlines, the demand for cars and all is only going up. Yes, the capital gains, coming to that, I wouldn't have touched it, but the fact that removal of indexation from all assets. Earlier it was equity which was hit by that. Now debt and everybody has been hit by that indexation removal. Very typically, government servant does not have to worry about inflation. He does not have to create a corpus for his own retirement because he gets an index pension. Yes, things will change after some time, and after the people who are not under the old pension scheme and are only under the NPS, after when they come to power, it might be a little different, but otherwise current people in the finance ministry are not hit by inflation at all because they get an OROP and index pension, so they are not be hit. So they are bound to say things like, how does it matter? I remember one of the finance ministry persons saying, it does not really matter because the money in capital gains is money without any effort. I mean, this is so typically arrogant saying, I mean, I'm sure people who are outside the government say, look, these guys are getting paid so much without any effort, and them, I'm sure that they will not like it. The fact that, oh, yesterday I was there in the office till 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or things like that. And so they write one exam and for the rest of their life, their career is taken care of. So it's fairly obvious that they think capital gains happens without any effort, but somebody who sat on a share for 10 years, 20 years, sat through the inflation, maybe did research and consolidated his holdings or her holdings, right? So to say that capital gains comes without effort is wrong. And then they are very quick to quote people like Thomas Piketty, who, I mean, people wouldn't even spit on him. But to quote Thomas Piketty and say therefore capital gains is justified is very scary. Capital gains went from 10 to 12.5% for long-term capital gain. I'm not even talking of short-term capital gain that is supposed to hit the traders. Could they have done one thing and said all assets will be treated as long-term if it is for more than 2 years, whether it is gold, whether it is equity, whether it is debt, whether it is a mutual fund, just say all mutual funds are assets. They will all be short-term if it is 2 years, there will be long-term about 2 years, so 20% short-term and 12.5%. Could they have done it? Yes, they could have done it. Have they done it? No. So the definition earlier used to be an equity-based mutual fund has to have a weighted average of 65% and things like that. All those definitions, weighted average, everything can go if they say all assets, 2 years is short term, about 2 years is long term. In fact, I would have gone to the extent of saying 2 years is short term, 20%, 2 years to 5 years is long term, 12.5%, after 5 years, maybe 5%, right? So that to compensate more for the inflation, or promise that every 5 years there will be a grandfathering, because otherwise 12.5% after 10-20 years is going to hurt a lot. What will people do? Will people stop investing? No. Will you stop paying insurance premium because you are under the new regime and you don't get ATD benefit? No. Will you stop giving donations because ATG is lost on people under the new scheme? No, we will do none of that stuff, right? So we will continue to pay our taxes, we will continue to make our donations, all those things will happen. We will continue to pay our insurance, so all those things will happen. But it would have been better, it would have been less hurtful, and all over the world people are being incentivized to invest. So is it fair that we pay capital gains tax without indexation? I think no, but we'll learn to live with it. Thank you.